some, someone else, that's not communication, that's
taking a position and
that's
doing the
taking a position,
business
right,
of the
exactly,
committee
right,
outside of
outside.
the open meeting.
Right.
Right, so I think we're pretty safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's what your intent is and what the content is. You can discuss, that's why I disagree with the people taking the extreme version that this case means that school committee members can't discuss school committee business outside the open meeting. That's not what it says at all.
Okay.
You can discuss business. You cannot deliberate. You cannot take a position without all the information and take a form of action without bringing that before your open session and saying that in public. And you can't even have a deliberation about an acceptable reason for going into executive session without first coming to your open meeting and taking your motion to go into executive session, documenting that, and then going in your executive session. Here, there was where performance of the superintendent was clearly subject to the open meeting law and not executive session. The content of the email specifically asked for that person, school committee member's opinion and evaluation of the superintendent in writing. So that's why those facts are pretty clear.
This has always been the law. This is right. The law hasn't changed.
The law hasn't changed.
What they're doing is now addressing the emails, which are obviously this
right,
documentary.
because the emails ended up being sort of a composite evaluation. So what the court was saying, if you want to have people write separate evaluations, what you should have done is discuss the performance in open meeting, and then go into executive session and collectively draft a draft of the evaluation or finalize the evaluation, and individual members can add pieces to it. That you could do in executive session, and then that written evaluation is subject to the personnel record statute and does not have to be disclosed unless both the superintendent and the school committee choose to disclose it.
That's the odd thing, though. You have to evaluate in public, but once it's in writing in a report, you don't have to make the report publicly. That's kind of odd.
And that's why the court, there's a lot of questions around it, and I think that's why the SJC took the case to say, yeah, school committees are sometimes in a challenging position that you have to comply with two laws that under some circumstances could seem inconsistent. So we're going to give you some advice of how you can comply with both laws. So that's one way. That's one way to do it.
If these were private conversations of the same content as the emails, the same law would apply, right?
Right.
Okay. Even if they were private conversations.
That's right. That's right. It's when do you, when are you wearing your hat? When are you wearing your school committee hat? When are you engaged in the business of the school committee, or when are you just discussing? Whenever you're discussing, as the elected official, whenever you're discussing a subject that is your business, you just can't deliberate and exclude that from your public discussion. You can say, let me share some information with you, and then you bring that topic, however, if it's subject to the open meeting, on the agenda and discuss it at the open meeting.
These are very tricky things. We had recently regarding several of us are frequenters of the MASC listserv, and it's an email form. So there's a lot of discussion about the race to the top. Many of the communities, pros and cons, a lot of discussion on it. And there were two of our members that had made pretty explicit feelings known on that. I refrained from adding anything to that simply because I felt that if I put my name on it, that was a meeting.
You had a quorum going on in the listserv.
A quorum in an open to the world, but not open to the public in a published meeting.
I think this is saying it doesn't matter whether it's a quorum, right?
It's still
right.
That was the surprising part of the decision, the controversial part.
That's interesting with that listserv.
They said when the school committee chair asked everybody to send it, and some people answered the evaluation and sent it to all members, that was a quorum.
Yeah.
But some people just sent it back to the chair, and that wasn't a quorum, but the court said, we don't care. The
Doesn't
intent
matter.
was still
Right.
to discuss
That used to be
performance
the feeling
outside the
you
open
had
meeting.
three or four
Yeah.
people together.
And so it looked at the intent, but it's a good point.
But I felt if I put an email and my thoughts into it, then we would have had a consensus
Right.
on the listserv
Right.
which would have, in essence, constituted a meeting. So I didn't put anything on it.
Yeah.
And I was boiling inside because I wanted to say something.
It is a, it is a caution, I guess it provides caution about that, because you can be not intending it to be a deliberation, but it can turn into, it can
Right.
turn into that under the definition. So you can, so think of it kind of as the tips of, you can discuss, think of it as just the facts, please. You can discuss information, you can share information, but be very clear, you're not stating an official position for the record, and you're not taking any action that would be part of the decision at that point in time. That has to be on the agenda. It has to be listed on your agenda on that.
In this case, it would not have been to the committee members. It would have been to the listserv. But anyone reading that could have easily put together our decision on the subject.
That's why Jerry doesn't have email.
Yeah, he doesn't.
Are you guys
But there
turning
would've been
yourselves
three
in,
of
or
us.
what's going on?
Yeah.
We don't discuss anything. Right. only
Sharing
two.
information, discussing information, the implication of it.
With the rest of the
There's no
school
decision.
committee.
Putting disclaimers in every email I send to anyone.
Yeah, right.
So we're
I'm not
going-
answering anymore.
Right, yeah,
I
you
want
have
you to
to
read my
obviously be
all
careful
anyway.
that you're
I'll
not,
answer once.
you're not using an email in an inappropriate way, in a way that could be misconstrued then, and be viewed as official business. And it does then encourage you more than to pick up the phone and share some information that way, as opposed to doing it in email, because you could use the subject line in the email and be very clear with that, but then still, what content are you putting in there? You know, how much content are you putting there, and are you giving an opinion, or and it's not always clear from a written document then what the intent was. And so the court here, although Wayland was very clear that wasn't our intent, the court said, look, it's your burden to have clearly in the minutes what your intent was. And their mistake was they met, when they met in executive session, they switched over to another topic, and that wasn't clear from their minutes too on that. So it's following both the procedure of it, obviously, and then the spirit and the intent of it, and not being totally free-flowing in email communications that you're flowing over into stating an opinion as a school committee member for business that should be on the public agenda with that. And you can link things to you can certainly link things that you need to do in executive session to certainly the acceptable reasons, but if you're linking that, you don't have to put all the facts and specifics in your minutes, but at least say what category or issue you're discussing. If it's talking about screening candidates for a superintendent, make sure it says just screening candidates. You don't have to have all the details. You don't have to have all the details of that.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you. Any other questions for Nancy? Thank you
Thanks a
very
lot.
much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to
Keep us out of trouble.
discuss it. And, well, it's also one of those things that, you know, here, I mean, this is not legal advice, it's just kind of information and facts, but, you know, I have my email address on there, and you bring up a good point of that nothing ever dies in the universe of electronic
yeah.
information. There's a whole new industry of forensic.
Yeah.
You can delete it and it's never, you can delete it and it's never deleted.
It's
It's never
never
deleted. It's never deleted.
Never.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good week.
Thank you, Nancy.
You too. Keep driving up there.
Is that yours, Nancy?
It was a
So that's-
trying to drive in that bar.
Okay, here we go.
Um,
Big news.
Next item on the agenda is the budget.
Yeah, I don't know who's gonna talk about that.
For once.
Well, the document you have in front of you is, a level service budget. And in the, letter that I put on the cover of the budget, I mentioned that, with the information that we have right now, Carl and I have figured that it will cost $23,820,262 to run exactly the same program as we have this year, or $1,017,387 more than the appropriation we got this year. Obviously, the bulk of this increase is negotiated settlements. There's also money included for the anticipation of the new bus contract. And we have not included any money that we don't know for sure we have. So if somebody said, you know, don't worry, you're going to get blank, you'll hear later, it's not in here. This is just what we know we have. So, for example, the AARA SFSF grant, the money we have left over from this year is in here. There's no Recovery Act money in there for next year, except an IDEA, because we know we're getting the IDEA money. We don't know about anything else. There's a couple of adjustments that we'll go over based on historical analysis of this year. For example, we're anticipating less in the pre-kindergarten tuition, so that's been cut down. And in the back of the budget, an envelope, I'm sorry, in your folder, there's a piece of paper that said preliminary budget notes. Because it's a level service budget, we didn't add anything to this budget that wasn't in the last budget. But there are, I met with all the principals, I met with the other administrators, and there are position requests. Mr. Bernard would like a guidance counselor, Mr. Fauché would like a world language teacher, the Hood wants a half a reading teacher, the Batchelder wants a inclusion paraprofessional. We have some small cap requests, and some textbook adoptions, and then the last thing there says curriculum leadership. We're in the process of negotiating with the association a new curriculum leadership plan. It's not progressing as quickly as we had hoped, but if the plan that we are currently discussing is implemented, it's going to cost $23,500 more than the current stipends that are in the budget. And I just wanted to let you know that. And then beneath that is things that I've already touched on a little bit. The pre-kindergarten tuition has been reduced because it doesn't look like we're going to have as many slots for the non-special needs kids. The IDEA money for FY11 is split. So there's a budget offset for a reorganized PDD program that's in the budget. The half of the IDEA money that we have to use for new programs is not in the budget. You can see what we carried forward from last year. Our expense budgets for each school are funded at FY04 levels. I mentioned that we bumped transportation up $55,000, and we have a $31,000 offset, decrease in the offset of athletics because that came out of the revolving account and it's not there anymore. A couple of points I'd like to make, and then I will open this up for questions, either myself or Mr. Nelson. First of all, this is a starting point. I would hate to have anybody say, we have the school department budget, because it's, as you know, it's a document in flux. We have received from all kinds of sources the Chapter 70 appropriation or suggested appropriation in the governor's budget. For North Reading, the Chapter 70 in the governor's budget is $6,823,391, which I believe is the same as this year. And the unrestricted general government aid is $1,564,395, which again I believe is the same as this year. The governor has said that all districts will be funded at foundation budget. They'll not be funded at less than fiscal